All right, we got a little bit of a recorded version today. I'm so accustomed to going live here, but I'm very, very happy to have our guest today, somebody that I ran into a lot during Laker games that would sometimes even call out substitutions before they even happen on the sidelines. I want to welcome in our guest today, Claire De Lune, who covers the NBA for The Guardian. What's going on, Claire?
Hi. Well, first, I want to apologize to your viewership for
Okay.
the not live thing because it's my fault. But Alan goes live very early in the morning, and I'm not a morning person. So,
First, first off, it's actually kind of nice sometimes when I'm not going live, and
yeah.
then we could just kind of shoot the shit. Some
And
of the
then you can edit it.
comments, some of the comments that are all coming in at the same time too, I could just focus on the interview. Okay, but here's the thing. You said then you can edit it. I never edit.
Oh,
I just kind of
well,
roll.
good to know.
That's kind of the beauty
10 toes down.
the podcasting and the YouTube. It's like, you know what? I was doing radio for so long. It's like enough of these edits or you got to drop a certain word here. No, we
All
just
right.
roll with it. Well, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you coming on. Let,
My
let me
pleasure.
let me start off with this. I'll start off with how's the summer going so far? How's the off season going? I know you were telling me you're going to be at game 5 of the Thunder and the Pacers, so you'll be
Yep.
covering it still.
Yep.
But how much different is it when the Lakers were going and when the Lakers aren't going?
I mean, I'm spending a lot less time in arena for sure. I've still been working, like I've still been writing. I wrote on the Timberwolves. I wrote on the Pacers after game 1, that crazy
Hmm.
comeback. So and like predictions and like those sorts of things. So I've still been writing, still been working, but I definitely miss being in an arena. So I'm really excited to go back. I mean, as you know, obviously both LA teams got eliminated in round 1. So for like convenience purposes, that was not ideal. But yeah, I feel like my life is pretty much the same, except I'm spending a lot more time like with my friends and at home and a lot less time in a gym. But I wouldn't, there's nowhere I'd rather be than the
So
arena. So
so you're big you kind of enjoy the going to the arena, the
yes.
okay. Yeah, I kind of it's kind of funny. I think I'm at a stage, but that's because we're covering the Lakers for a while. So I've been going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Laker games for a long time. I'm a little more selective now. Now I'm kind of like, if I don't make it to this game, the world's not going to end.
Oh,
Obviously,
for
that's
sure.
different if it's playoffs and postseason, but I know what you're talking about because anybody that sees what we do, they're like, what do you mean you don't want to go to a game? Like it is kind of,
It does.
when you think about it.
The shine wears off a little bit as far as like the novelty of getting to see a game in
Hmm.
person versus watching it on TV. Because sometimes I almost find like I watch it more intently and better when I'm at home watching it on like the broadcast because I don't have all the distractions of being in the arena
100%.
and I'm not as overstimulated. But for me, the fun part about our job and like the thing I love the most is like getting to talk to the players and like getting to like hear, some of their conversations with each other after the
Hmm.
game or whatever, or hear their arguments on the bench. And that stuff like I miss a lot when I'm not there. And also just seeing all our like media friends and it's like our office kind of in a way. So it's like I feel like I'm work from home now this summer and I'm like I miss going into the office.
Okay, so one thing, you mentioned I think how do I describe this? You're talking about like the interaction during games, everybody else, everything else. We're all end up at some point congregated in a media room. You might be the healthiest eater that I've ever met because
Well, I appreciate that.
but you always bring your own stuff for the
I do.
most
I
part.
always bring a salad. That's my
Yeah,
thing.
and then
Yeah.
you kind of walk up, you're eating a healthy salad, and then I'm probably chowing down on one of the burgers. I'm like, Al, you want to get your life together here? Why don't you look across the table? Claire's eating a salad.
No, no shade intended at anyone, although I always feel a little bit like I know how it comes across that I'm like, I'm coming in with but it's honestly the real reason is because I'm gluten free. Like I can't eat gluten. It makes me sick. So I never know what they're going to have for us in media dining. And so I started just bringing my own food
Only the
because I was
best.
trying to be self.
Only the best from crypto.com arena.
Yeah, no, for some, so it's giving high school cafeteria sometimes,
Yeah,
um, but so just in case I started bringing stuff, and then it was sort of like, okay, well, it's just like I'm a creature of habit, so I just pick up my salad on the way to work, like it's just like my little habit. But it's not like I'm only healthy. I do partake in the arena soft serve like more often than not, I would
Yeah.
say. So
The soft serve is it's very, very popular here. Okay, so I was saying to myself, I'm like, all right, I wonder, how much is Claire covering the NBA once the season ends or once the
Mhm.
Lakers season ends? So
Yep.
I go to your Twitter. This was earlier. It
Uh-oh.
was no, this you're good. But I'm looking at your Twitter and I'm like, I wonder, if she's covering this and that. I'll read your last couple of tweets.
Oh no, please.
Horrible Halliburton game. I don't think he's earned the top tier superstar status until he can be more consistent. New rule: if you didn't make all NBA, you aren't allowed to swirl your finger. Um, so I'll just
I feel
stay.
like I haven't been known to speak my mind.
Well, no, what was funny to me is like I was wondering whether I'm like, how much is
Is
she
she even
following?
watching?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if she following the NBA finals, and I'm like, why don't I? I'll just follow her and not pay attention to the finals. I can get everything there.
I do live
Um,
tweet most of the games. Yeah.
Okay. With that being said,
Mhm.
obviously we're 2 games into the NBA Finals. The Oklahoma City Thunder, Indiana Pacers. Love that you're going to be at Game 5
Yeah.
in OKC. That's going to be fun. The next two are going to obviously be in Indiana. Give me kind of your initial thoughts here. 2 games through.
I mean, so I picked before the series, I picked OKC in 5, which I feel like was sort of the general consensus pick. I didn't know that at the time because I had to submit my pick a while ago, but it feels like everyone kind of steered that way. Obviously, maybe not obviously, I guess they could win the next 4 in a row, but I would say it's kind of a long shot that they're going to win in 5 at this point since they, split the home games. I'm just done underestimating the Pacers. Like, I really do
Hmm.
think Oklahoma City's the better team. I thought that before. I thought the reason that I picked them in 5 is because not only are they the better team, but they're like the better version of the Pacers. Like, everything that the Pacers are good at,
They
Oklahoma
do a
City's
little
also
better.
good at, but they just do it a little better. And like their best player is a better best player, and all the way down the line. But the Pacers just have some sort of like team of destiny,
Hmm.
special sauce, magic, every bounce that could bounce off, bounces in kind of thing going on. And I've learned not to bet against teams that feel like they have that kind of momentum. I did think we saw in game 2, like game 2 is more what I kind of thought, the series would be. Is just like obviously they're both going to come out hot in the first quarter, like, tensions are going to be high, but I just feel like from an execution standpoint, from a depth standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, like I just thought OKC had the upper hand. But we'll see. I mean, those are their home court advantage games, and they only split them. So we'll see what happens in Indiana, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm with you, and to be honest with you, Game 2. If you say Game 1, OKC had let's call it a 9 to 12 point comfortable lead for about 3.5 quarters ish.
Yeah.
Game two,
3.75 quarters. Yeah.
right. And Game 2, it was kind of the same thing, but that lead was, let's call it 12 or maybe 15, somewhere around there. And then they just took off and they ended up, at one point, I think they had a 23-point lead. I think OKC has not been bad in the first 2 games. They had a bad X amount of minutes where
Yeah.
Indiana was phenomenal, which I think what you said about sometimes you watch a team and it's like, no way they're going to do it again.
Yeah.
They did it against the Bucks. They did it against the Cavs, against New York in Game 1 where they're down 14 or whatever that was with under 3 minutes left to go. And then they did it against the Thunder. I feel like Thunder have dominated and it's 1-1. Like if that makes any sense right there. And if
Yeah.
you're Indiana, you're saying to yourself, yeah, that was our goal. We just wanted to grab one of these and we did so. I guess the question is going to be, does OKC just kind of start tightening that grip moving forward, or Indiana's going to be at home with their crowd in games 3 and 4? They've been phenomenal, from a home perspective as well. Very interesting 2 games, if you ask me.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I agree with you about OKC dominating throughout and then still only ending up with the split. And it kind of reminds me of the Knicks Celtics series a little bit, where it's like, you know, the Knicks were coming back from down and like, the Celtics were up 20 multiple times throughout
Yeah,
the
first
first
two
couple
games.
games.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, in that case, obviously lost both games. In this case, it's a split, but it's kind of a similar idea of like, I swear I watched this team like have a total handle on this. And then somehow the results of the game don't. reflect that. And I wrote about the Pacers winning game one, and Tyrese gave us obviously an incredible kick, gave me a great kicker for my article, and gave us a great quote where he said, come May and June, it doesn't matter how you get them, just get them. And so I feel like that's been kind of the Pacers ethos is like, it doesn't really matter if it's messy. It doesn't matter how much you're leading for throughout the game. Doesn't matter if you get your ass kicked for 3/4, like it's a W in the win column. So that's why I wouldn't exactly write them off. I feel like I told my friend I was watching with last night, like it's either going to be OKC by 15 plus or the Pacers by like 2, and there's no in between. Like I feel like the only way to kill this Pacers team is to truly knock them out and blow them out. Like I don't know if I would favor OKC in a close game, to be honest. They haven't had to play that many of them.
That, by the way, I couldn't agree more. It's either OKC in a blowout or it's the Pacers just getting by. And to go by what Tyrese Halliburton said, it doesn't matter how.
Yeah.
It truly, truly doesn't matter. I mean, if I'll use a baseball reference here for a quick second. It's great for the team that keeps winning 8-1, but eventually you're going to be in a close game. And if you lost 3-2, they still count as the same exact thing. So the close games versus the blowouts, you don't get any extra points for blowouts, but it's a good perspective to have it in. You had said something, and not you specifically, but just kind of the talk about coming into the finals was, you got two teams that are they're not in the big markets. It's not these marquee names. Granted, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the freaking MVP, but it's not, you don't have this high flyers, these crazy storylines. What do you make of the NBA Finals? I always say this. I'm not the person to ask because I'm an NBA fan. So as long as I'm watching good basketball, and I don't mind, I think there's a beauty to seeing a team like the Thunder, who have built their franchise the way they have done it completely different than some of the other teams out there, or use the Lakers as an example, kind of always trying to swing for the fences. It's pretty cool to see how they put together their roster. Indiana, we've talked about just kind of what a cool story they've been. What do you make of the matchup and those that whine and complain that it's not big enough markets and it's not big enough stars?
I mean, I don't really care, except for as a media member, it kind of sucks to have to travel to either Indiana or Oklahoma City. But for the average viewer who doesn't have to go there, like I don't really know why you would care.
Things to do in OKC. I'll send you the link.
I've been Googling.
I don't know what it is, but I will find it.
But yeah, besides that, I mean, like, first of all, who cares? Truly.
Yeah.
Second of all, the hand wringing about ratings to me is so bizarre. This like weird couch GMing that happens on the internet, because not only does it not matter for you, the viewer, who's like feigning concern about it, but it also really doesn't matter for the NBA. Quite frankly, they just signed a new 10-year media rights deal. Like they're fine. The ratings
$76 billion.
Massive media rights deal.
They're okay. They're going to be okay. Yeah.
And truly, that is not impacted in any way, shape, or form by this finals probably isn't going to perform very well in the ratings, and it just doesn't matter. So I don't know why anyone really cares. As far as like the teams, I mean, can
I say this, Claire? And just, like you don't have any idea how things are they're gonna shape up. But the Eastern Conference Finals with the Knicks and the Pacers did very well ratings wise.
Yeah.
Okay. Who would have known that it was going to be Knicks and Pacers, and who would have thought that those ratings were going to be as good as they were? Series to series, you kind of don't know. There's no way of kind of telling. Maybe you thought that the Golden State Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves were going to be great ratings, and then Steph Curry left after X amount of minutes in game one.
Right. No, totally. And then I 100% agree. And then as far as the basketball itself, like it really does feel like the two best teams made the finals. Like I feel that way after, not necessarily after watching the whole regular season, but after watching, a couple months of playoffs, like these were the two best teams consistently throughout all 4 rounds. So I think, as a fan of basketball, you should be happy that the best teams are there representing the sport. They both play a very like egalitarian style of basketball that's really fun to watch. I mean, obviously like the Shea stuff is a little more heliocentric than the Pacers, but still much less so than many other teams in the league. And they're both young, up and coming, like quote unquote built the right way. I mean, it's all this people just want to complain, I think is what I've learned, because it's all the stuff people normally complain about. Like it's not a super team. It's not the same two teams in the finals every year. It's like they're
Mm,
never happy. And so I just don't really worry about it cuz like it doesn't really there's still a ton of interest in the sport, which is what matters for my job.
sure.
And beyond that, like I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm looking for some positivity and for a more optimistic view, I usually go on Twitter. I usually hang out on most of the social
Yeah, that's a good
platforms.
place, especially my mentions.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on the internet when I'm
Yeah,
looking for positivity. It's amazing. I mean, it's
that's smart.
amazing how
That's really
much
smart.
how all right, so as we kind of look here moving forward, you said you had Thunder in 5 before the series started.
Mhm.
Um, I had Thunder in 6, and I still have a difficult time seeing the Indiana Pacers winning 3 more games against OKC.
Yeah,
Without trying to predict games, do you still think this is the Thunder's series or the Thunder's finals to lose?
1000%. Yeah,
Yeah.
I still think they're gonna win. I just think it's gonna take more games than I thought. But that being said, I mean, like, game 6 is gonna be an Indy,
Yeah. Yeah.
so never know what could happen with that, and then, obviously, a game 7 is essentially March Madness. It's a single elimination game, so, um, you don't want it to go to 6 or 7 if you're the team that was, like, prohibitive, like, what was it? Like, minus 700 favorites or something, like,
Sure.
you don't wanna drop one of those 2 at home, but for us viewers, like, I think that was such a fun, iconic end to a game,
Oh,
and it changed the tenor of the series because now you watched even in game 2, which OKC controlled handily. It felt like for the whole game, it never felt like they were out of control. The crowd was tight, and they looked tight. Like,
mm,
they never seemed like they felt confident that it was a W, even though it was never really in doubt because well, that's what Indiana does by winning these game ones and in the way that they do, they just like plant these seeds of doubt in you where you're just like, I don't know, like, could they come back? Like we've seen it
sure.
before. And I think that I'm grateful that they did that in the sense that it made the rest of the series more entertaining.
All right. Hopefully, I was saying this as kind of the series progresses. My hope is, can we get the 2-2 through 4 games, and then whatever
Yeah.
happens after that, I'm good. Like I think just more from an entertainment perspective, more to just kind of keep people tuned into the NBA Finals to see, obviously these two squads. Hopefully we can see that. And listen, if that's not the case, then that probably means OKC just completely dominate. I'll throw one thing at you. I was asking. I don't know if you know who Andrew Schlecht is, who
Mhm.
covers the Thunder for the Athletic. So he was on last week, and this is when Indiana just took the 1-0 lead. And I told him, listen, let me overreact for a quick second. Let's just hypothetically say that the Thunder lost this series. They lost to the NBA Finals, and it didn't happen. And I asked him, I said, how do you think the front office would approach the offseason? Would they overreact to it? Would there be this, you know what? Maybe we got to go maybe we got to go big game hunting, whatever the case is. I love what he said. And it is very much, I think, the Oklahoma City Thunder to their blueprint, which, by the way, I think makes the Western Conference run through OKC for, we'll see how long that comes about. But he said, no matter what happens, they will not change what they're going to do. They have a philosophy. They're
Yeah.
not going to go overreact. They got guys that are 23, 22, 21. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander seems like a veteran. He's only 26 years old.
Yeah.
That would basically be, Luka's 26 for the Lakers. Just think of Luka and everybody else younger than him on that team. I know there's Alex Caruso and there's some other players, but that kind of, I looked at that 2 ways. I'm like, damn, this team, no matter what they does, and no matter what they do, and they'll probably win a championship this year. They're not going anywhere for a long time, and I just don't see
Yeah.
that franchise overreacting.
No, I agree, and it's funny to think that they're kind of ahead of schedule still, but they are because they were the number 1 seed 2 years running, and they were so dominant this year, and they were favored this year even heading into the season, but, like, they're ahead of schedule. These guys are young. They have a young core, so, I don't think that they should panic or would panic if they lost, but yeah, I mean, I think that's what's cool about Sam Presti. That's what's cool about OKC is they do things their way. It's the only way, and they don't deviate from that. And I think you're seeing like from both the Pacers and OKC, like not only is this kind of a new era in the sense of the younger talent, but also in the sense of like team building and what you prioritize. And like, do you even really necessarily need a top tier superstar to succeed? Like, you certainly don't need one to make the finals, I would argue. I don't personally have Tyrese Halliburton in my top 10, even in NBA players. So I think it's way more about depth, athleticism, chemistry, all these other things that have been sort of like left by the wayside in favor of just like big game hunting. I hope the Lakers will take note of that, that success formula, because I feel like that's something that they have historically neglected as a franchise. But yeah.
We got to take a quick second to shout out one of our partners. Thank you to Brad Wallace and the Wallace from, look at this. I got the gear too. Look at this Nike gear. Look at they providing me here. Shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. I've spent a little bit of time talking about my story with Brad Wallace, but I'll just kind of keep this simple. They are injury attorneys. They represent anybody in the state of California. And I highly, highly recommend, if you're ever in a situation, a wrongful death case, something happens at work, something happens in your car, please do yourself a favor and go to this website that we got here, wallacewins.com/Sliwa, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. They could help anybody in the state of California. You get a free consultation. I could tell you that in regards to injury attorneys, they are the best in the business. I've known Brad Wallace here for about 5 years. I can make a personal introduction if that, certainly if that helps. I hope you guys never need him. I hope you guys never need an injury attorney. But if you're ever in a predicament or a situation, he's the best in the business. So Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. Also, they're proud to support the channel. They're big Laker fans. They are definitely a group of individuals based in LA that's got complete support of the channel. Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm, wallacewins.com/Sliwa, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Now back to the con. I think that's actually, I think it's a perfect transition. So, you got a chance to, obviously be around the team and watch the Lakers, and we could just kind of isolate this season. Whatever's happened in the past has kind of happened, but
yeah.
I think there is some truth to what you said. It's like there is the franchise. You don't say Lakers and patience and say, oh, those go perfectly together. Like that doesn't exist. Can you do both of these things at the same time? Can you build for the future while also trying to win right now? Because I think, what Pelinka's juggling is, I'll give you a good example. Before the trade deadline, they get Luka, and then they obviously try to do the Mark Williams trade. I thought the Mark Williams trade, the concept of it, here's a big that will work well with Luka, that is a good fit for the present and the future. At an age, I think Mark Williams, correct me, maybe 24, somewhere around there, I think is his age. So I was like, hey, you know what? No, this is a really kind of the concept of that player. I'm like, this is a smart move because you're going to try to address something now, but you're also saying that, hey, this is also a guy that we can have for the future.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult do you think that's going to be for Pelinka this offseason to build for now, the pressure of I got LeBron right now, and also I got to build for the future as well?
I mean, I think you saw obviously like with Golden State trying to do the 2 timelines thing, it's just not really possible to do. But I would argue like, as long as you're not completely mortgaging the future to get better right now and like completely poison pilling yourself, like I think they owe it to LeBron that he's still as good as he is to at least try, and I mean, even pre-Luka, like it's funny, we talk about the Lakers not being a patient franchise, but I feel like they were sort of quote unquote patient, like to a fault the last few years.
With AD? Sure.
Yeah. And really reticent to make any meaningful moves. I mean, I don't think they made a trade for like almost 2 calendar years before they got Dorian Finney-Smith. So I think they owe it. You have LeBron, you have Luka, regardless of what we just said about how depth, seems to win championships at this point. Like those are 2 of, I would say, at least the top 15 best players in the league, if not top 10 at right now, like even with LeBron being 40. So you have a shot, and I think you owe it to them to at least try. I understand not wanting to completely like poison pill your future to make it happen, but I think now that you have Luka, the Lakers are already a free agent destination. They're certainly going to be a free agent destination for any big, because like playing alongside Luka is going to elevate your value and
Big time.
help your career. So I don't think they really need to worry that much about how are we going to get talent in the door in the future. Like that's going to happen. And they didn't have to give up, as much for Luka as you would maybe think. So they're in pretty good spot that way. But I think they certainly need to compete with the tier that we're watching compete in the finals. They need, better like guard defensive depth or anyone who can defend a guard, I guess, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And they need like a true starting caliber big. And I think that's a bottom, like to me, that's like baseline.
The baseline.
Like you need to find both of those things this summer, not by the trade deadline, this summer. So they actually have a chance to build that chemistry that's so important. And if you don't do that, like if you see Rob, make a tepid move or sign a big that's like okay, but not great, not address the depth issue at, the sort of like 1 through 3 defensive spots, I think that that's an indictment on how he feels about the ceiling of this team and that he doesn't really think that they can contend right now.
A lot of good stuff right there. I think I think the piece you said about LeBron, and I'm sure there's a portion of this for LeBron as well. It's like, well, why am I playing if we're not trying to compete for an NBA championship, which is that's been kind of his foundation from the start. It's like, and some people don't like the, he signs those 1+1s, things like that. I've always loved it. I loved it when he was in Cleveland, especially in Cleveland, because I'm like, you can't trust that owner. You just say to yourself, I'll always hold this franchise hostage. Make sure that you put a competitive team enough around me so that, and you should be using the strength that you have. And obviously LeBron has that strength. You said something about the, putting together a team and looking at that backcourt and making sure you have a team that could play some type of defense. And if you don't, then we know that you're really not going to go very far. What's kind of been Austin Reaves has been a big part of the conversation this summer. Just what's your view on Austin and Luka together, or how you can either use Austin Reaves to still put together a competitive team this year, or use Austin Reaves to say, you know what, we got to use him to go get that big that's going to be the center for the Lakers for X amount of years. Just your take on Austin Reaves.
I mean, I think Austin, I think because he had a not great showing in the playoffs this year, there's a lot of recency bias as far as like how people are talking about him and how good he is. Like he averaged 20 points a game this year. I mean, he was great.
Close to 25-5.
Yeah. Like those are all NBA numbers, like third team all NBA numbers. So I just think that we've lost the plot a little bit on how we talk about Austin Reaves. Not only was Minnesota probably the worst possible matchup for him specifically in the West, due to his lack of athleticism, but I think he was injured for, what is it, like 2/3 of that series or something? So with the same injury that Darius Garland is now about to get surgery for and miss like 4 to 5 months. So I would pump the brakes a little bit on like the Austin discourse and like the hate. I do understand like long term, is he the perfect fit next to Luka in the backcourt? Probably not, just because neither of them are like high level defenders and neither of them are particularly athletic, and that's tough to overcome in your backcourt in this like hyper athletic.
I'd be perfect for that backcourt. I mean, you said you can't play defense and unathletic. I mean, I fit right in.
I also think both Austin and Luka are like have become slightly underrated as defenders, in the sense like neither of them are good. I don't want to like mince any words about that. They're not good defenders, but neither of them are like abominable defenders either. It's like Luka has like some issues with defensive focus, I would say sometimes, but they both do a commendable job when they're locked in. They're just not good enough to compete with like the caliber of the guards talent in the West is just off the charts absurd. And you just need a high level defender to defend them. But what I would say, and what I've tried to say to Laker fans in general, is like, I don't want to get into the weeds talking about the CBA and salary cap and all that stuff because it's boring. But essentially, like, Austin makes, what is it, like $14 million right now? Mm-hmm. So, and the Lakers are a taxpayer, which means they can't take back more salary than they give out. So if you want to do a trade for Austin Reaves, you have to get back a player that makes what Austin Reaves makes. And you're not going to get back a player of Austin's caliber for $14 million. He's on one of the best value contracts in the league right now. So if I was the Lakers and I knew that the move was to eventually move off of Austin for like the Luka future Lakers 2.0, whatever, post LeBron, I would keep him this year. He's in a contract year. He's going to be balling his ass off as he should. And then sign him to whatever the market commands that you sign him to, probably in the neighborhood of like between 30 and 40 million a year, it looks like. And then use that salary hold to trade for someone that you think is a better fit for Luka for the future. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah. So by the way, I think what you said, which makes a lot of sense as well. I think the point of whatever you saw last is what your impression is of that.
Right.
I mean, I can't tell you how many Laker fans that I've heard say, JJ's not the guy. JJ
That's ridiculous.
Was phenomenal.
He was incredible
all season long. And I will also tell you, I didn't think he was good in the playoffs.
No,
I think the roster had flaws, and I think JJ was inexperienced in the playoffs.
He looked like a rookie head coach in the playoffs. That was the first time all season that he really truly looked like it was his first time at the rodeo.
I agree. And the justification of saying, well, like, and I think there's some comps there with the Reaves thing. It's like, if you don't think there's a big difference between thinking Reaves is a good player and not a good player, and there's a big difference between saying, I think Reaves is a good fit, and I don't think Reaves isn't, or I think Reaves is not a good fit. For those that think that Austin Reaves is not a good player, I don't really have an argument with. I don't want to.
Not a serious argument.
Exactly. Like there's no debate there for me to have. But if your argument is, can you truly be a championship caliber team with Luka and Austin Reaves as your backcourt in today's NBA? You got to have a little bit of a defensive presence, need two-way guys. That's a different argument. And I think that's a fair conversation. You're not I think your point of not, and I don't think the Lakers are going to do this because I think two things aren't going to happen. Number one, I don't think they're going to trade him for a Nick Claxton type of player because there's too much value in Austin Reaves. And number two, I don't think Bam Adebayo is going to become available to trade him for that caliber of a player. So I think the idea and the option is saying, let's just hold off then. And if we have to pay him market value next year, then we'll pay him market value because he's still going to have value in the NBA once he does sign his contract.
100%. And I would add, like, I think, people talk a lot about what Austin doesn't have and what he doesn't bring to the table in the form of like that defense and athleticism. But if you're going to replace Austin Reaves, you're going to lose like high level ball handling. Like if you recall, Austin was playing point for a good chunk of the season before AD got traded. And even now, like when Luka is off the floor, they've been staggering those minutes. So like Austin is the primary ball handler out there, and he's really good at it. He's a really, really high level ball handler and facilitator. He has that in his game. So if you replace Austin, you're going to have to replace him with someone with similar level of ball handling skills, facilitation skills, or you're going to be losing that. And I think that that's not easy to find. Like off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of like a great point of attack defender who has great ball handling and facilitation skills, who has that athleticism, who can run point. I mean, it's like there's not very many of those players in the league. So I think people have this kind of pie in the sky, like, oh, we need to replace Austin. And it's like, you're going to be losing everything that Austin brings to the table in addition to gaining what he doesn't, not to mention the fact that anyone of Austin's caliber is already making a minimum of $30 million a year, which is double what you're paying Austin at the moment.
Yeah. The one thing I would be open to, and I think it's worth exploring here for the Lakers, if they're able to kind of fill in that center role and they found somebody that they feel like, okay, hey, this is definitely a huge upgrade from what we had in the past. I think there's an argument to be made, especially why he's still only making $14 million. Put Dorian Finney-Smith in the starting lineup with Luka, let Austin Reaves come off the bench, and he's still going to play starter minutes. I think I think sometimes you get lost with there's some great players and great championship rosters or teams that gone far that have really good players that are the first guy off the bench. And I wonder if, like you're saying, from a Austin Reaves now doesn't have to be a third option. Austin Reaves can have the ball in his hands a little bit more if Luka's on the bench, get a little bit of a breather or whatever the case is. I mean, whatever that combo looks like, I think they still have options with Austin Reaves. I think that's something that could be explored as well. But I'd rather be looking at ways to use Reaves than just saying, well, Reaves has got to go because this big is available and this big is not a top tier, obviously one of the better centers out there.
For sure. And I think the other thing that the average fan, to be honest, like just misses is that sort of like chemistry continuity factor that has proven so beneficial for a team like Oklahoma City or a team like Indiana. Like, obviously, that's not everything, but like Austin is a beloved guy in that locker room. Like, the whole coaching staff loves him and he's really easy to work with. Like, just a really good dude, works really hard, like, no ego.
Came
And
through the system.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's worth a lot, honestly. Like, we saw with the Russell Westbrook experiment, like it's not just about like, I mean, to be fair, that didn't even look right on paper. So, but maybe bad example in that respect, but like it's not just about like how someone's resume or what it looks like on paper. It's about like what happens when you bring them into this locker room and like what kind of alchemy does that create. And I think having your third best player be someone who can be egoless, can do whatever the team needs, gets along with everybody, super easy to work with. That's worth a lot, especially with personalities as big as LeBron and Luka as your top two.
What's your take? I did this a little bit earlier, and just kind of more curious. Anytime you see some of these different trades that go out there, a lot of them also have Rui Hachimura's name attached to it. And I think that there's a couple of reasons for that. First off, Rui's got a very interesting skill set. Like, Rui's a nice player. He's not going to be great. He's not, there's going to be some nights where you're saying, I didn't feel Rui's presence tonight. There's going to be other nights it's like he had 20 and I felt his presence.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of Rui, bringing him back, holding on to him? Or is that just, if you're going to address some of the needs that you have, do you feel like Rui just has to be potentially one of those players that have to be involved? They have other expiring contracts. They can make deals work. Maxi Kleber's got an expiring. Gabe Vincent's got it expiring. I'd rather keep Rui if I can. They do have some draft picks. They do have Dalton Connect. Just how would you look at Rui and the importance of trying to keep him?
I love Rui. I think he was awesome this year. I think he's been a little bit maybe misused in his role out of utility, because they had to. Really, they didn't have a whole lot of other options. I think he's definitely restored some of his value. Like, I think he was a negative asset at this time last year. I would say he's probably like a neutral to maybe like tepidly positive asset at this point. I think the reality, while you have LeBron, is they're a little redundant. And that's been true, like this whole time. Obviously, Rui doesn't have all of LeBron's skills, but rather it's one of like those inverse things where all the skills Rui has, LeBron pretty much has, and like size-wise as well. I think the reality of the situation is that he is probably likely to get moved, just in the sense of like the size of his salary, the appealingness, like you said, of his contract, the fact that he has sort of restored some of his value. It's like you can feel good about like, okay, we can get some money off the books, and in the meantime we get a solid player that did a good job in the playoffs, and like we can feel pretty good. Our fans can feel pretty good about what we're getting back, even though ultimately the value is probably more so in the expiring contract. I mean, I think he's really well liked, and I think JJ really likes him. So I'm sure they would like to keep him if possible, but they just don't have a ton of stuff to trade that's like worth anything, to be honest, which is like, that's the challenge of trying to rebuild this roster this summer. Is like Dalton, I would say probably still a positive asset, even though he had a tough rookie year. Obviously that first round pick worth something, although a lot less than it was this time last year, because now you have Luka Doncic and that makes the pick worth less. Once you get through those things, it gets pretty tough as far as like what you have that any other team would even want, that you wouldn't have to attach something to move. And Rui's kind of the last remaining thing, I think, that has any value as far as trade assets. So I think you should steel yourself for the reality that it's likely he's going to get moved if they want to actually be aggressive. But like I was saying earlier, like I'm not convinced that the front office is convinced that this roster is worth investing in and that they're not just sort of like biding their time until Luka takes the reins completely.
Hmm.
And I think it'll be a really telling summer. Like if they do move everything that can be moved to try and get better, I think that's an endorsement of this core. And if they don't move much or if they don't move anything, like that tells you kind of everything you need to know about what they think their chances really are to win a championship.
Yeah, I wonder too if, even if they could still make a lot of moves and be aggressive, but part of that could also be we also just want to make Luka happy, right? We just
Yeah.
want Luka
Well,
to
that's
also think that we're making sure we're accommodating to him.
the elephant in the
Um,
room. Yeah.
right.
It's the
Like
extension.
exactly. That's right. I think that's August 2nd is that extension.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, they have to do something before then that shows that they're serious.
100%.
He really like is wearing the pants in that relationship right now. So,
Hmm.
and if as much praise as they got for that trade, do rightfully so. If he walks, like it suddenly doesn't look as brilliant to trade
Oh, yeah.
Anthony Davis for and Max Christie for like one sort of good to okay year of Luka Doncic or 2 years or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I expect everything I've heard is that he's going to sign, but I think it makes sense that he's sort of holding their feet to the fire. Like, prove to me why I should sign. It's much like you were saying about LeBron signing 1+1s. Like, you only have so much leverage, even as a
Sure.
star player, and you have to use that whenever you can.
Yeah, and I think the good thing is, I think with this franchise and ownership, there's always pressure to win. But that doesn't mean just because you want to win, it doesn't mean you're going to win.
Right.
You obviously have to make the right decisions, and I think it's as much to Luka showing that they know what they're doing rather than they want to win. It's like, well, make the right moves, not just moves to accommodate me or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious. I got a couple NBA questions for you, and I do appreciate you joining the pod.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before I hit on the NBA, just I'm curious how surprised were you? How quick the playoffs were done for the Lakers? It was 5 games, it was over, and next thing we know, you didn't get any more opportunities to bring your salad to the media room anymore.
I was really surprised, to be
Yeah,
honest. I was dead wrong about what that Minnesota matchup was like for them.
so
Like,
was I. Yeah, I
I
was
didn't,
I was way off.
that was the thing is like I just completely underestimated like how much of the upper hand Minnesota had. I mean, in
Mm.
hindsight, it's like that makes sense. Like the team that has given, the Lakers the most problems all year was probably Minnesota, as far as like they had a horrible record in Minnesota in particular. And then also the type of team that's given them problems all year was that super like big athletic, punishing
Young. Hmm.
young kind of team. Like that's the prototype of what has given the Lakers issues all year. So in hindsight, it's like it was kind of hidden in plain sight. That being said, like I just thought, first of all, I wasn't expecting the kind of leap in maturity that Ant seemed to make about like the play making and facilitating and decision making. He just was awesome at that. And then Julius Randle having like the series of his life, I feel
Yeah,
like I don't really know how we could have seen that
just
coming, quite
became a
frankly.
Hall of Famer in the first round.
I mean, it was ridiculous. Like he looked incredible. Also, Rudy Gobert randomly looking like Shaq for one night. I don't know. There were just a lot of weird things that happened that like I don't know if we could have seen coming. And then obviously,
And even that last game that you were saying that Gobert looked like Shaq, it was actually a combination of Shaq, Kareem, and I think Olajuwon. He was all
yeah,
of them. But even in that game, um, I think they were like, if I'm trying to remember at the top of my head here, it was historically the lowest 3-point percentage. Wasn't it like they
yeah,
shot 16% or something like that from three?
they had no business winning that game, like zero. Yeah,
And even were in kind of had the lead
they
basically for the
quit. The
entire
Lakers
game.
just quit harder, is what happened in that game, in my
Yeah.
estimation. And then also LeBron sprained his MCL and is, had to recuperate for a month. So it's sort of knowing how bad that LeBron injury was, I think should sort of like lessen the pain of that exit for Lakers fans because the reality is
It
without
was coming
LeBron,
to an end. Yeah.
that was just inevitable. Even if they forced a game 6, it was going to end in 6 because LeBron was going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks. And I do think, like, as we got deeper into the playoffs and like saw Oklahoma City mature, and the reason I guess the reason I was so high on the Lakers is because they had seemed to be the only team that really gave Oklahoma City any issues, especially in Oklahoma City, during the regular season. And I thought that that was the team to beat. So I was like, well, the Lakers are the best equipped to beat them, and they have shown that. And so I'm high on the Lakers. But I think Oklahoma City took a leap, over the course of the playoffs and really grew and matured. And I don't feel convinced that the Lakers would have beat them. So, like, even the best version of the Lakers that we saw. So I think I was wrong, but I was really surprised. I at least thought, I mean, especially as the way the bracket broke for them, the fact that they were only going to have to face one of like the Clippers, Nuggets,
Denver. Yep.
OKC, like
OKC.
that side of the bracket. I mean, all of their worst matchups that I thought ended up on one side of the bracket. That was ideal. Got to delay Golden State for a round because I was kind of concerned about that matchup. But it turns out, I think in hindsight, Minnesota was by far their worst matchup in the entire Western Conference. Like I would have actually even given the Lakers a better shot against Denver than against Minnesota, just because of the athleticism and size factor.
All right, final one I got for you, and then
Yeah.
we're going to let you go enjoy the rest of your day to get out of your way. There has been, I've heard Rob Pelinka during the exit interview said something to the effect he expects a really busy offseason in the NBA. Shams Charania said something that, it's going to be wild what happens. Then you heard Brian Windhorst say it. Usually when things get hyped up that much, I hope it lives up to the expectation, because it is kind of one of the funnest times of the year in the NBA is when you have so much of the chatter and the rumors and all that stuff. What do you think? You think it lives up to the hype? You think there's a lot of movement? I think the one thing that's so unique about the NBA right now is the 7 teams in 7 years will have won an NBA championship. I think the Eastern Conference, all of a sudden, the team that you just thought was going to be the most dominant in the Boston Celtics, not only lose in the playoffs, they lose Tatum. I saw some reports about maybe Drew Holiday is on the they'll listen to offers for Drew Holiday. So the East looks like it's kind of up for grabs right now. And then we know how competitive the West is. What do you think we should expect in the offseason, just the NBA in general?
Yeah, I think it kind of, to me, like Giannis is the domino. So like if he stays in Milwaukee, I think it'll be that sort of underwhelming trade season that you're talking about. But if he's that first domino to fall, obviously the amount of stuff that would have to get moved, it's probably going to have to be a 3-team trade. There's going to be a lot of people involved in that trade to like
Sure.
make the Giannis move happen. And I think also the sort of residual panic that would come after that of like, oh no, so and so just got Giannis, especially if it's a Western Conference team, I think will force a lot of movement. The only like big star I feel 100% confident is moving is Kevin Durant. Like I just don't see a universe where he's a Phoenix Sun to start the season. And obviously that's going to cause like some level of ripple effect. But to me, I'm looking out for like if Giannis stays put, I think it's going to be a little bit quieter of an offseason than people are expecting.
Claire, great stuff. I appreciate
Thanks for having me.
the entire breakdown. By the way, for those who don't know, go on her, promote your Twitter real quick.
Okay. I'm on across all social media. I'm at Claire MPLS, and I live tweet stuff and I share my articles and all that.
And the reason why I said go on X is because she's also a music artist.
Yeah.
Really, really good music artist. So
Thank you.
she's got a. I was telling her before we got the show started, I'm like, Claire, what's going on here? That song was awesome. That was on there. So you can see her work on X as well. So great job covering the NBA and then making it happen as a music artist as well. So thank you for coming on. Appreciate you joining
you
the
in
show.
Vegas for Summer League, maybe?
I'm not sure yet. I'm not
Okay.
100% sure yet, but yeah. And I've had a few people ask me that question, and I've been there before for Summer League, and it's been awesome. It's been fun. It's a great time for the industry to all kind of get together. So I'll let you know if I make that happen.
Sounds good.
All right. That is Claire De Lune right there, covers the NBA for The Guardian, and really appreciate her time. Claire, thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.